Hi, I'm Benton Stokes,
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
and this is Cocktail Theology. Hi there.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I am. You've made us a cocktail
Yeah?
about which I'm a bit nervous.
You're a bit nervous?
I am because of the things you told me that are in it, and I haven't tried it before, and I'm having trouble imagining what it might taste like. It's not in my flavor imagination.
Ah, I see. Well, let me tell our listeners kind of
Please.
what I did. So a few minutes ago, I went to one of my favorite cocktail websites, and I found a cocktail recipe and decided to make it. The ingredients in this cocktail, which by the way is called the Bensonhurst, which
I'm sorry, it just makes me think of all those movies about little neighborhoods in New York. Okay, sorry, go on.
yeah, well, it's supposed to be a riff on a Brooklyn, which is a riff on a Manhattan. So,
Okay.
but it does have rye whiskey, which we love.
We do.
It has dry vermouth, which we like too. It has Luxardo, which is not my favorite, but
I
it
enjoy.
definitely adds some dimension to a cocktail.
Yep.
And then it has Chinar, which is an Amaro that we've been wanting to try for a
Yep.
while. It's made from artichokes and 13 herbs and botanicals.
I'm sorry, I don't care how many times people say that. Every time I think of KFC chicken.
Right.
Every single time. I'm sorry to laugh. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead,
So
go ahead.
we've been wanting to try Chinar, and so we got some, and I found a cocktail with it in it. I put the ingredients in the shaker, shook it with ice, poured it in a glass, and we're gonna try it.
All right,
All right, we can do this.
I can do this.
We can do this.
It's a good color. I mean, at least the
Yeah.
color is not like,
Yeah, it's good.
neon chartreuse or something. Okay, I think the ingredients are really good.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I love the maraschino, which I know you don't, but I do, I think it's a little heavy.
It feels a little heavy to me too.
I think we could bump up the other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I could use a little more rye, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
myself.
Yeah, I think proportions are off on this.
And of course, I don't know what Chinar tastes like.
I just tried it a minute ago, and I'm not tasting it.
You're not
here.
tasting it here?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so maybe we bump that up a little too,
Yeah,
just for fun.
I love it. All right,
right.
so I feel hope in this.
Cocktail experimentation, real time.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway. Yes, and that actually is the first cocktail, so I'll just tell you that all of this confusion coming out of my brain and my mouth is actually just me. So, what are we talking about today, friend?
Today we are talking about gratitude. This episode is going up on Thanksgiving,
Yay.
and we are a few days before Thanksgiving as we record this. So I thought it would be perhaps useful to talk about gratitude as a spiritual practice.
Okay.
Now, everybody knows what gratitude is. Gratitude is something that you hear quite a lot about during November. I know that a number of my Facebook friends, they post these gratitude lists every day. 5 things I'm grateful for. My cup of coffee, the book I'm reading, my kids, whatever. And that's all great. And there's nothing, certainly nothing wrong with the gratitude list.
Not at all.
Gratitude lists can sometimes give us perspective when we need it. And that's great.
Absolutely.
But I think what I want to talk about is how do we practice real gratitude all the time. I believe that Jesus was a very grateful guy.
Yes.
You could look objectively at Jesus' life, and his life wasn't rosy exactly. And in spite of his circumstances and in spite of what he had to deal with and the opposition that he faced and other things, he continued to have a spirit of gratitude about him that we can learn a lot from.
Yes.
So I think as I'm thinking about gratitude today, I always in my prayer time I try to tell God what I'm grateful for, something that I'm grateful for. And a lot of times it takes some searching to really find the thing that I want to say I'm grateful for. And honestly, sometimes I find that thing in the middle of a situation that's not awesome. It's like when you have car trouble and you have to take your car in. It never happens at a good time.
No.
I don't have, the money set aside for that or whatever. But if I really, once I get past the of it, if I really stop and I think about it, it's like, well, first of all, I'm thankful that I have the money to pay for a repair, even if it's not the way I meant to spend it. I'm thankful that I have work that provides me with the income to do that. And I'm grateful that I have a car, and that I have a car that I enjoy driving, and that's generally speaking a really healthy car.
Yes.
I have things to be grateful for in spite of, that. Now I know car trouble, while it's an irritation, is not as difficult or as oppressive as some things that we can face are. And sometimes it's really hard to find that thing to be grateful for in the middle of whatever it is you're going through. But I do think that part of being like Jesus is learning how to practice gratitude even when we don't feel grateful.
I'm struck by what you just said about the way you think through the car problem. And then you sort of dismissed it, like having a car problem isn't as big a deal as. And I'm thinking about the fact that so many people in our listening audience work on an hourly basis away from home. And car problems are a BFD.
Yeah, sure they are.
And so I don't want to diminish that.
Sure.
And that speaks to perspective, right? And what you're talking about is a kind of perspective. It's a kind of, not being trivial about what we're grateful for. Oh, I'm grateful for this. I'm great, blah, blah. But instead, it's about the way we approach our world. It's about that practicing perspective.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that way of thinking about it. I admit to cynicism about the ubiquitous gratitude lists. I think they're great. I mean, there are times when that's what we need. We just need to write down 10 things we're grateful for.
Sure.
Thank goodness we've got this, or thank God we've got this. But in most times, it's about right-sizing who we are in the world, what's going on around us, against all the other things. I think particularly if we're people who read the news, it's really easy to just be overwhelmed by all of the hard.
Yeah.
And so looking for those places where we can say, and, yes, this is hard, and learning how to do that when it's not so difficult to do it, can help us do it when it's pretty darn difficult.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone recently with a very serious chronic degenerative illness, and just how one keeps any kind of perspective in that, and it's rough, right?
Yeah.
That's a spiritual practice. How do I continue to find light in things around me? And when we're going through really hard times or ongoing hard times, it can be just this tiny pinpoint of light.
Yeah.
And learning to look for that is a brilliant spiritual practice. Just that tiny bit of light. So for example, I'm sitting here and in our space, I am enjoying the shadow that is being cast by the arm that holds your microphone onto the wall. There's something about it that to me it looks like a flower pattern or something out of George Lucas, And I'm enjoying that. Finding that. I mean, being grateful for your car, grateful for all of that is wonderful. And sometimes we just have to focus on the finding that.
Right.
I'm glad you brought up Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in the United States, for those of you who don't live in the United States, is really so in our character as Americans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we turn this kind of weird situation of basically the native indigenous peoples saving the lives of everybody around into this thing where we're all celebrating, and then it turns into this feasting that starts and then keeps going until past Christmas, right? So, I mean, it's a very American kind of thing. And, there are times when you get people around a table and you say, okay, so what are you grateful for? And they just kind of stare at each other and I'm like, okay, really? Why is this hard right now,
Yeah.
And I wonder whether sometimes it's in the face of abundance that we have trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So if we practice looking for those pinpricks of light in the darkness, maybe it helps us actually be thankful in abundance.
Yeah.
We're so used to having full stomachs that we're no longer grateful for full stomachs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Right.
I love Thanksgiving. I really, really love that holiday. And how can I go into it looking for the grace that covers it, the glory of God that shines through it, whether or not, because I don't love Thanksgiving food, right? But whether or not I do, where is God's glory showing through this, right?
Right.
And if I can look across the table and see you or other people I love, holy moly, that alone.
Yeah.
I've had Thanksgivings that have not been good. And looking back, remembering the people I had good Thanksgivings with, even if that one sucked, is that same kind of gratitude. I've had the experience of this that I carry with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a deep practice. There's nothing wrong with being thankful for your car and the turkey at all. And that will only get you so far when you're aiming to be a spiritually deep person.
Yes.
I love this. I love what you're bringing up here for me. It's really helping me think about what can I do as somebody who strives to be more enraptured with God to do that.
Yes, it really does kind of come down to finding new places where God is, or finding new ways to experience God.
Yes.
Seeking God out. And sometimes that means praying to God. God, where are you in this?
Yes.
Where are you in this? Whether things are bad or good, where are you in this?
Yes.
Because sometimes, like you said, when we have full stomachs, sometimes that's when it's harder to be grateful. It's also when it's harder to find God sometimes because everything's so great.
Yeah.
And when things are great and comfortable and easy, it's real easy to just find yourself in the middle of your own universe.
Oh, yeah.
Because you haven't had to lean on anybody, you haven't had to ask God for much, and so things are just kind of peachy.
No, you're right.
And but the thing is,
how weird is that?
How weird is that, right? I know. You would think that would be the easiest time to be grateful, and maybe for some people it is, but I think it's easy for me sometimes to get lost in that, and I do think that thinking back historically on where God has been or where God has shown up for me. So if I am going through a rough spell, if I'm emotionally down or things aren't going the way I want, I can at least look back and say, well, I had this season and God was there, and I didn't feel God then either.
Yes.
But I can look back and I can be grateful for what I went through that taught me that.
Yes.
So that now I can at least call back to that. It may still feel crappy. It may still not feel great. But at least I as an Enneagram 6 I don't always trust outcomes. I don't always trust my own ability to make choices. But if I can see where God was, then I can see where God is. And I can project where God will be.
I love what you are doing with the practice of gratitude. I love that you're making it more than a list. I love that you're talking about the different ways in different seasons we have to do this, right? So you're talking about when you're in a season, looking back and remembering that you discovered after that season was over where God was.
Yes.
And so now you can look back and discover blah, 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 right? I think that a lot of us are taught as Christians to practice looking for God retrospectively in bad seasons. As opposed to looking for God in the normal everyday, just kind of, there's nothing great going on, there's nothing horrible going on, just that kind of, there we are, right? And being awake and attentive and making room for the fact that God is peeking out in all the spaces.
Yeah.
Recognizing that the world is one big thin space, one big, very little between God and us, and looking for the place where we can see God.
Right.
I love that. I love the variations of practice that you're talking about and the levels of looking at it. So, at this moment, I am thankful that we can say that a cocktail is not as great as we'd like it to be. and that sounds ridiculous, but it's like, what a privilege to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that I get to do this with you. That is a huge grace for me. I love the fact that we are in a warm place.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like something to be grateful for. So just in those kind of simple, here I am ways, what can I be aware of that, sure, if I want to drill down, sure, it's all about me, I made all this happen, whatever, but instead say, regardless, there's God in this.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What are you thankful for today?
What am I thankful for today?
Your car's working.
My car's working.
Yay!
Yep. I too love Thanksgiving, and I actually do enjoy most Thanksgiving food, although I'm not a huge turkey fan, to be honest. But I like all the sides, and I love all the desserts, and I like your Thai pumpkin soup. And I'm excited to decorate the table this year.
I'm so glad you're doing that.
Job this
so
year.
Excited.
So
it's gonna be beautiful.
I hope so.
Well.
Fall is not my favorite season of the year.
It's rough for you.
But I have to say this year it's been better. It's been easier. I think some of that is because we've been able to kind of put a period on some things that we've been working on that are so important, and we've spent a lot of time working on them. And music for me, a book for us, and this podcast, and the things that we've been able to do during this season. I don't know if they've kept me distracted, or they've kept me engaged, or they've kept me grateful. But for whatever reason, I am grateful, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm glad to be going into the end of the year feeling really hopeful about what's down the road.
Yes.
And a clean slate with which to begin. So I'm excited for that. And I'm just, I just have a lot in my life that I love. I have comic books. I have good music to listen to, and I have good friends to have conversations with. And I enjoy my life very much right now, and that's a lot to be grateful for.
It is a lot to be grateful for. And I know you well enough to know that when it is not as perfect, you will look back and say, okay, I got to hear. I'll get to hear again.
Mm-hmm.
I am very thankful right this moment for the fact that we have people who we get to talk to about things that matter so much to us.
Yes, me too.
And so I'm very grateful for whoever's listening to this. And I will pray tonight and going forward, at least as long as I remember, that whoever's listening to this is discovering things that they are grateful for today, just today, including good friends or the hope of good friends in the future.
Amen to that. Listeners, we would love to hear from you. We love your comments. We love your questions. You can always email us, Elane, E-L-A-N-E, and Benton, B-E-N-T-O-N, at schoolforseekers.com. Also, if you would be so kind, go to our website and join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of things that are coming up. And there will be things coming up that we will want to tell you all about. In the meantime, we are thankful for you. And we will go into this Thanksgiving ready to eat and ready to be grateful. And right now I'm going to enjoy the rest of this mystery cocktail and see what we can do to make it better.
And if you haven't gotten our daily contemplations for misfit Christians, the entire Christian year, please go onto Amazon and get it. It's like less than $20. It's 499 pages, all of it chock full of scripture and prayer and thoughtful questions and love. And if you can get a year full of love for $20, you're doing pretty well.
There you go. I think
that's something to be grateful for.
I think so. All right, friends, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.